The trailer for Team Southtown finally dropped, and these guys are looking good. If you're a fan of any of these three, you've got to be pleased by how they turned out in this game. So let's take a look at what changes they got from 14 to 15. So starting with Billy, he's going to have a returning armored special move from the older games. This is not something he had in 14, but now that he does, he's going to be able to steal some turns and surprise some opponents with his armored move. Now, they don't show what the EX version looks like, but I don't think it's going to be a juggle move since all of his other EX moves already do that. If anything, they might just make it a hard knockdown so he could re-establish the distance and be annoying with his range. A weird change that you can see is that his half circle forward C follow-up doesn't do the explosion, and in fact it doesn't even knock down. Instead, it leaves them standing and sucks them forward a little bit. If I had to guess, this is probably a variation. Like maybe the explosion follow-up is still there, but now he's got a different follow-up that you can do instead, which is this one that you're seeing in this clip. Either way, I'm having a hard time figuring out why this is a thing. It doesn't look like he's got time to combo after this, and I can't think of any new combo routes that will open up in a juggle, so this is just something we'll have to explore in training mode. Back in 14, this anti-air special didn't have any follow-ups, but in 15 they've added the explosion follow-up that you typically see from the half circle forward special that I was just talking about. If the explosion launches the opponent higher than it did in 14, then we're probably going to see some new combo routes from Billy, otherwise it's probably just a damage buff. His uppercut super can now advance cancel into his flame wheel super when he lands, something that wasn't possible in 14. This is a much needed but also obvious improvement that Billy needed, especially now that advance cancels are more common and practical in 15. And finally, we have a new climax animation for Billy. His original one in 14 was complete garbage in terms of visuals. In fact, landing it might even deflate you and make you play worse. So the fact that he actually has a cool climax is probably a good mental buff for the player, so good shit SNK. So next up we get Yamazaki, who also has a returning special from the older games, which is his OTG stomp. So there are a lot of moves in 15 where being an OTG is a secondary property, but this move's primary purpose is to OTG, so I don't think this move will work on a standing opponent. But having this move is going to be really good for Yamazaki. First of all, it's going to be a really fun way to end a combo, and secondly, it's going to add some much needed damage output. If he is able to super cancel off the regular version, I think Yamazaki's damage output is going to be pretty damn good. Farsi is now special cancelable in 15. In 14, there is really no reason not to use Far D instead. But now that Farsi is special cancelable, Yamazaki is going to have a damaging punish game for moves that are unsafe but leaves the opponent too far for a crouching short. So really good stuff for Yamazaki to have. Similar to Yashiro's forward B and other command normals in this game, Yamazaki can now combo his forward B on aerial opponents and still combo afterwards. So the combo in this clip was possible in 14, but only in the corner and without the forward B connecting. Now he can do it with the forward B to add damage, and it works anywhere on screen. This is probably the most significant change to Yamazaki since he now has a combo route with just one EX move that could be comboed off of lights and end in a super. So this super into advanced cancel isn't anything new. I only wanted to show this clip because this was only possible in the corner in 14. But because this clip also shows him in the corner, we can't really tell if this advanced cancel is going to work outside the corner. So I'm hoping that they've updated in 15 so that it actually does work outside the corner, because it's dumb to make advanced cancels a thing and not allow characters to be able to actually do it. And finally, we have Geese Howard himself, a character that a lot of people love seeing in 14, but nobody used him because they didn't know how to be good with him unless you were a truly skilled player. Anyways, like with Billy and Yamazaki, he's got a returning special from the older games where he jumps up and comes back down with a swipe. In this iteration, the heavy version looks like it causes a hard knockdown, and because of how slow it is, maybe it's also an overhead or plus on block, or maybe even both. And it looks like the A version can be used for new combo routes like this, which is really great, especially for corner combos, but I'll get to that in a bit. One thing I did notice, at least from the A version, is that this move doesn't look like it hits on the way up anymore, so maybe that's a property that only the EX version has. So this change is probably one of the most gangster changes I've seen, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's that his OTG pickup move now has an EX version. In 14, there was no EX version of this move. It was just a regular version, and he would always slam the opponent in the opposite direction. But now he has the option to maintain the corner while doing more damage, so to me, this is more than just a cool cosmetic addition to his moveset. So as someone who's played Geese in 14, this is probably one of my favorite changes right here. So his EX palm now crumples on the first hit, and it's interesting because the punch follow-up still wall bounces. So you might be wondering, why would you ever not do the second hit? So the reason for that is because if you do the wall bounce in the corner, the opponent bounces to the other side, and your combo potential as a result is actually worse than what you can get outside the corner, which is stupid because you're supposed to get more damage in the corner. So Geese's combos in 14 was one of the most polarizing things for me because of this. But in 15, just having the crumple on the first hit gives him a new combo potential in a corner like this right here, and it's going to be really good for him. And speaking of new combo potential, it looks like Geese has a new follow-up to his palm, and it looks like this is off of the light version. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Geese has 3 different follow-ups off of his palm, and it's only off of the heavy or EX version. The first follow-up is this double-handed push, which is a hard knockdown or wall bounce if you're using EX. The second follow-up is the overhead stomp, and the third option is the low-hitting sweep. But this one has an entirely new animation where he strikes with his other palm. So because the heavy version already has 3 follow-ups, I think it's reasonable to assume that this follow-up is exclusive to the light version. If that's true, this is really good for Geese because in 14, if you're trying to combo off of lights and you don't have any bar, Geese can only combo into the light version of his palm, which has no follow-ups. So this change will add some damage and possibly give him more time to super cancel. And finally, Geese has a new climax, which is a returning classic super of his. But instead of replacing Raging Storm as a climax, it's actually an additional climax. So if you're fighting Geese with 3 bars and you're trying to bait a reversal from him and just block, the alternative is that he could just grab you with this climax instead. We didn't get to see any of his regular supers, but we're probably going to see the counter and Reppuken super from 14. And if that's the case, Geese is going to be one of the few characters in this game who cannot advance cancel the supers together. So Angel's another example of this, but the trade-off is that she could do a lot of damage with low meter usage, and it's looking like Geese might have a similar trade-off based on what we've seen in this trailer. So final thoughts, I think it's good shit as usual from SNK. I really like the changes we've seen, and I'm excited to explore these characters once the DLC drops next week. I like that we're also getting their classic costumes without additional charge, which we should. And if you're not interested in any of these characters, then maybe you'll be excited at the balance patch that's going to come with this update. So SNK hasn't released any patch notes at the time of this recording, but they did call out that this is going to be an actual balance patch and not just fixes to unintentional glitches. So there's a lot of vocal opposition to Ralph, Vanessa, and Terry, so we're probably going to see some nerfs to those characters. Aside from that, I don't know what to expect. For the most part, I think they've done a good job with 14's balance patches, but my only wish is that if they don't change the health values for any of the characters and keep everyone at 1000 life. In 14, they nerfed some of the female characters' health to 900 or 950, but none of them had any advantages that justified the nerf. And then you got characters like Ralph who had no major disadvantages, but they gave him 1100 health. And, if a character needs a buff, just give them something that gets them more damage. And if a character needs a nerf, then just nerf his damage to be on par with the rest of the cast. I think changing the health values is probably the worst way to balance a game, especially for KoF. Anyways, once the patch notes drop, I'll make a video to explain the implications, maybe offer an explanation as to why SNK would do it, and then provide my own input if I feel strongly either way. So yeah, that's it for this video. Look forward to some combo videos when the DLC drops. Until next time.